Kia ora, Gary, and thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Quite nice to see you.
You had entertainers like Sir Howard Morrison, Billy T. James, Dave Dobbin perform at your venues. It's quite an impressive lineup, but can you tell us who drew the biggest crowd?
Dave Dobbin.
Dave Dobbin?
That's a bit scary. Yeah, Dave Dobbin.
That's a bit scary, is it?
Well, we went way over our numbers that night. We were allowed on the premises, but we couldn't stop them coming in the door, so yeah, it was a big night.
So when you say you went way over your numbers, what sort of numbers are we talking about?
Well, when I got my first liquor licence, it was restricted to how many diners you could have per square metres of carpet. And we measured up every inch of carpet, managed to get 263 was our limit. But that night we stopped counting at about 400, I think, 480. But they were going to come in anyway. They were coming through the toilet windows and over the door that night, so it was something worthwhile to put it on, but we managed it somehow.
I understand you had a room full of screaming women one night because of a group called the Foxy Frenchmen. Now can you tell us what was that all about?
Well, I was approached by a entertainment company, a promotions company, to see if I'd do these different shows and things, and we did fairly mellow things for a start, and then got into the Foxy Frenchman was offered to me, which is a troupe of 4 or 5 guys who basically got their gear off for the girls. Well, Dargaville hadn't seen anything like that.
No.
And there was a lot of newspaper report from some of the churchgoers.
Oh.
Yes, they were going to stop them at the bridge and all sorts. They wouldn't let them into town. But anyway, it worked, and we had 2 nights of a full house of 250 screaming women each night, and yeah, it was quite amazing.
And tell us, what was a highlight that stands out for you?
And the highlights probably were doing things like the Dargaville High School reunion, Southern reunion, Southern Football Club reunion, things like that, Dargaville Primary School reunion. At one stage I employed 81 staff in one night, working at once. And so that was probably a highlight, of doing 4 different venues and arranging 4 different types of entertainment all for one night. And the bars and several of the occasions too. Town Hall was full, but they all ended up coming back to the Cameo for the final thing, because that's where the boogie happened, and 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning we're still going, cleaning up. Yeah.
So I believe you had the rights to the Night Rider and the Dukes of Hazzard cars at some point. How did that come about?
Yeah, these are all through Gray Bartlett, who's a well-known country singer. Yeah, he offered the car to me through his company, and the idea was that the car would come into the Cameo. The original, they had two of the cars they used for stunts, etc. Yeah. So he had to buy the car, then he would basically lease the car to me for a period, and I could basically show it. Okay. And with somebody there or theirs managing it, and I had to pay $4,500 for the car. In January '86 it was. There's a contract for it, and I paid $4,500 to have the car for 2 days. And what we do is charge people to come and have a look at it, and even sit in it and get their photos taken. Yeah. And I think it was $1 a head. So we had to get 4,500 people through to pay for the car. Some of the local entertainment which really supported the Cameo.
Yeah.
And because there was actually nothing in Whangarei at the time.
Really?
There was nothing. There was no nightclub. It was crazy. I was the first one to get a thing called a catering license, yeah. Which I got that on the 10th of October. I remember a couple of years later, and I managed to open the Cameo with a catering license, which gave me the option to open from 9 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock the next morning, 7 days a week. Wow. And the local publicans weren't very happy, because it was the first one ever in the country to get. And then we had busloads coming over from Whangarei to different shows, like Lay Girls, Foxy Frenchman. We had the Coasters and the Drifters, Howard Morrison, all those ones. Shane, Bunny Walters, Herbs was a huge one. Yeah. Herbs was a massive one. That was one of the first ones.
I believe you've got a funny story about Billy T. James.
When I was at the Cameo one day, and I was just talking to a guy after work, was a landlord actually, and the phone rang, and I just excused myself, went to answer the phone, and this guy on the end of the phone say, "Oh, is that the Cameo Lounge?" And I said, yeah. And he said, "Oh, is Billy T. James here?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." Because my mates should have me on all of them.
Pranks.
Yeah. And I said, "Oh, yeah, what do you want?" And he said, "Oh, I heard you got a place up there I can come to, man." And I said, "What do you mean? What do you want to do?" He said, "Oh, I'll come and sing up there." I said, "Oh, when do you want to come?" He said, "Well, I don't know." And he says, I said, "Well, how much do you cost?" He said, "Well, I don't know." And I said, "Oh, well, what do you want to do?" He said, "Oh, I just heard you had a good venue up there to come and play at." I said, "Yeah, we can seat about 260 people." "Oh, great." He says, "Yeah. I'll bring my cousins and we'll come up there and play." I said, "Well, first of all, how much?" "I don't know," he says.
This is brilliant.
So I said, "Okay, when do you want to come?" I said, "Tell you what," I still didn't believe it was him. I was trying to catch him out, and I said, "Look, I'll tell you what, I'm coming to Auckland tomorrow. Can I give you a ring? And I'll bring my diary and we can talk over the phone." And he said, "Oh, yeah, yes, no problem, come and see me." I said, "Okay, where do you live?" "Oh, I live on a street in Remuera." I said, "Okay, I'll be there at 10 o'clock. And I thought, well, it must be him. So I went there and I knocked on the door and he come out with his big dressing, he just got out of bed obviously, and he had a big droopy moustache, and he'd come out the door and he said, "Oh, Gary, come in. So in his dressing gown, went through the kitchen, we wrote out a contract, which I have somewhere, scribbled on a bit of paper, and it was $1,200 for 2 nights.
Wow.
Which was quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And then the last time I had him, it was $6,500 for 1 night. So that's how much it changed. But
yeah.
he was just had his first TV show on then. Well, the same day I got Billy T, I was a bit worried about how much I'd get in return. And I had the Dargaville races that day, so I was up at 5 in the morning. We did the catering for the Dargaville races, and then he was doing the show that night. You couldn't get in the door. It was just absolutely packed. But he was just a character. He died too young.
So what gave the idea for the Gold Room in the Cameo Lounge in the first place?
Well, I was in Queenstown, and I was a chef at a hotel there who had just opened. It opened on the Christmas day of '74. The first guest arrived. Anyway, my wife became pregnant, so she wasn't going to stay in Queenstown over winter. So we moved. The hotel got a transfer to Napier, the same company, but then we decided to come north and start a business. So I did a bit of catering for the Northern Waira Hotel and another caterer for a little while. Then I decided the Gold Room came up for sale, so I bought that.
So the Gold Room was already established?
Yes, yeah. That was established with Marlene Beecham and Pat Dudson. They just had a little catering team, and they'd go doing catering and have little functions up there, yeah. And that's how I got started. And then I used to make it pump by that. We had the Dargaville Little Theatre involved, and they'd do shows up there. And then it got too small for the size of my business, so we discussed on building a property down Beach Road, which wasn't really the most appropriate, but it was all I could afford to do. But we did anything from champagne breakfast, fashion parades. We had church meetings down there, which they'd open the bar afterwards, which was all very good. I was the only one with a licence on a Sunday.
Yeah, of course.
And the Catholic Church had several things down. They'd all come down for church, men's meetings they'd call them, and they'd have a guest speaker, and then they'd open the bar and have lunch, and it was great. Yeah. We had all sorts of. We had dignitaries. We had Governor Generals down there. I found a menu just last night of Keith Holyoake, Sir Keith Holyoake. He was down there for lunch one day, and we did a formal dinner for him.
Oh, what did you serve? That's a good point.
Yeah, I've got the menu there. Tuatua soup. I can't remember now. I read it out. I was reading it last night, but it's there anyway. I can show you later. Tuatua soup was definitely on the menu. It was a 5-course lunch, I think it was. Yeah. Vice-regal lunch.
Now, you were obviously born to be in entertainment, and
not an entertainer, but in the hospitality.
in the hospitality industry, a revolutionary.
Well, I have
field.
been known to entertain, but we won't go there.
And thank you for joining us today. It's been
welcome.
great having you here.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be here.